Okay. So we're going to get started. A couple people here in class are going to be out next week. I think a lot of what we're going to do today and next week is really sort of, I think last week was a lot of stuff, right? Especially the second day when we really got into notebooks and we started using functions and we started doing all that stuff. That takes a lot to wrap your head around. So I think one assignment that I'm actually going to give everyone is just write down 3 questions that you have about things that don't make sense to you. And that's what I want to talk about. Yeah. So no super hard, coding tests or put together this stuff. Again, this is a short class. I want you guys to be able to grasp the sort of big picture fundamentals of this stuff and not necessarily the nitty gritty coding stuff. Because that stuff will just come in time, but the mindset is what's important, and that's what I want to really focus on.
I'm looking at that, how I interpret it to know, okay, like when you were looking at it last class, you were like, this doesn't look right, this should be up here, the flow of it, how it's supposed to look. That is kind of my question, like how do I read it and make it make sense to where I can start 2 problems solve and say, oh,
right,
this isn't right, that isn't right, this should be here, let me go to the top and, refresh everything.
Exactly. So folks online, if you didn't hear that, Michelle essentially said data literacy, right?
Yes.
Like how can I just look at something and know what questions to ask right away? And that's something that, for me, I take it for granted because I've been doing it for so long. Like my brain just works in that way. So that's sort of why I will pause and ask everyone, am I doing too much? Because for me, my brain just wants to go, and I realize I need to kind of slow it down. But that's also similarly why I'm going to assign you guys just to bring me questions, and they can be about anything. There are no bad questions. Unless you're asking about like acrylic paint or something. I don't know much about that. But in terms of coding and just if you have questions on syntax, if you just want to talk about what does syntax even mean, some of the words that I use to describe things, or the just jargon. If you're you keep saying this and I don't really know what that means, any of that stuff is fair game. Literally anything is fair game.
So it doesn't matter which notebook you use?
No, and I implore everyone to explore another notebooks. We're going to get into another environment today where there's even more stuff to explore. I don't mean to give you guys too much. And I know I said we weren't going to do much more with the Titanic data. We're going to mess around with that just a little bit more because we're familiar with that. And I also sort of want to talk through, really review what we did last time, because again, I know that was a lot. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. I would say probably, unless you guys kill it, we're going to review the first hour probably, go through the stuff we did last time, answer any questions, and sort of just make sure that we're wrapping our heads around exactly what you were saying. Are we using data literate thoughts, I guess, and making sure we can sort of draw parallels. I often say when I mention tabular data, I sort of reference Excel data, and that's a good visual because you get that it's a grid and whatnot. And so trying to find more ways to make this stuff sort of visually make sense, because when that occurs, then the data thinking sort of starts. So yeah, we're going to review. We're going to continue on with data cleaning. There's a couple more things that we're going to talk about in there. And then we're going to get into EDA, which is sort of, jargony, but that just means exploratory data analysis. Which is sort of what we're doing, right? We're looking at the data, we're making assumptions, but our mission when we're doing data cleaning is strictly, are there nulls? Is the data coded correctly? Are numbers actually integer object or numeric objects, or are they character objects? We're more minded on that. And so when we get into true sort of exploratory data analysis, we're then looking for a story to tell, or we're sort of looking for clues of how to put something together. A lot of the stuff that you guys did in the Tableau class, we're sort of laying the groundwork to figure out what sort of story we're going to tell, what analytics we're going to create. But Pardon me. And then obviously all of that, leads into visualization. And so I was actually just talking to Nate about this when he and I were cutting our teeth on Python or whatever and doing visualizations. You had to code everything. You had to do everything in a notebook. But there are so many low code solutions to do this stuff, to at the very least give you an idea of what to make rather than just like starting from scratch writing like MATLib plots or Seaborn stuff. And so that's the notable environment that I put in Slack today. We're going to get into that. And I think that's going to be a little more fun because it is low code. It's maybe more similar to Tableau where you're putting together visualizations and stuff like that. But it is in this sort of notebook style too. So it will look and feel familiar and whatnot. Let me clear my throat again here real quick. Okay. So with that, let's get into it. Where'd my mouse go? There it is. So yeah, review. For the standpoint of this class, we're talking about business intelligence analysts, my alter ego, Tim Flanders, at the Cool Guy Sunglasses. He's a professional who's responsible for gathering, analyzing, presenting data to help organizations make informed decisions. The big thing we did with data collection last time is we just read a CSV. That's extremely common. Personally, when I worked at Methodist, that was like 95% of the places we would get data is they would just drop CSVs in some place and I would make a script to automate that and pull it into my environment to read. So very, very common. There's also obviously SQL hookups too. We'll get to that probably later on in the course, but for the sake of right now, we're going to stick with that. And so then we did what I called initial EDA, where again, we're thinking about what's wrong with the data. Are our assumptions about the data correct? Do we need to change things? And feel free to pull up that Anaconda notebook if you want, but can anyone tell me some of the functions we were using to explore the data sort of early on? Yeah, if you do the dot and tab, you get a sort of laundry list of stuff to use. Right, and then that would run the thing. So the one that I think is the most common is head, and that will just spit out 5 lines of data. Let's take a look at that real quick and make sure we remember what that is. There we go. Let's go to Anaconda. Oh, don't I have something open? Yeah. Okay, so we're back in our Titanic stuff. We got the whole list of stuff. I'm gonna change this to, oh yeah. Then I'm going to run all of the lines above. Run all above selected. So we get our little text doc. We read in the data, and then head, right? And I have a 10 in there, so that's signifying give me 10 rows of data. I don't need the whole thing. Like this is like over 1,000 observations. Like that's not what I need to sort of just get an idea of what this data looks like. Just give me a quick snippet. Head is perfect for that. Similarly, tail is the other way if you want to look at the other side of the data set. So yeah, now I can look at this and I can get some assumptions like, oh, we have name, sex, age is numeric. We have ticket number, stuff like that. And then I could start to look and I could say, oh, Marvelous is back with us. What is up, my man? Cool. Yeah. So, and I can see I have some NaNs, which those just mean nulls. There's so much you can get from just 10 rows of this data. I can sort of figure out what I might have to do. Maybe for age, the ones that are null, I might use a function that will fill it with the average age. Maybe I will filter them out. Similarly, if we want to do just an analysis on the bodies that were found, I would filter out any bodies that are NA. And now I have a list of everyone that didn't make it, but were, ultimately their bodies were found. But anywho, just that little bit gives us a good amount of information. Where are you seeing? So the question is last modified. on the document.
Okay.
So where did you say you're seeing that?
Right there, on the sample, on the course side, where it says name and last name.
Oh yeah.
I was wondering why mine is like yours.
Yep, because these are, this virtual machine is just it's the one that I signed up with. So mine is going to look a little bit different than yours. And that's a totally valid question. Why does it look different? So yeah. So let's head back to, so there's some EDA functions. We also looked at column types, right? Because we want to make sure we know what we're looking at, or we know what type of data we're working with. So I guess we'll just kind of continue to go through this as a review. So there's tail. Remember, we used shape. This gives us sort of an idea. We have 1,309 rows. We have 14 columns. If we do columns value, we could see what those are. Again, these are just mirrored what we saw up here, right? P-class survived name, same thing. P-class survived name. And then describe. Remember, describe looks at all of our numeric data. But again, this is also helpful in seeing like, oh, we're missing some ages because that's not 1,309, yada, yada. We can look at data types. So I'll stop there and kind of open it up a little bit. What other things do you think we could be looking for when just getting our head wrapped around this data? Is there, let me think here. So one thing that can be potentially problematic is the column names. So that's something to think about, especially if we think back to everything we did in SQL. Let's say that there is a column that we're going to join onto another column. Like, are those columns named similarly? Is that something like that's just something that my mind goes to when I'm looking at a new data set with respect to maybe something else. Like, are columns similar? Could I potentially join this up to something else? What language is it in? Like, and I'm not talking like Python language. I'm talking about like what maybe these column names are in another language. Like, there are a multitude of sort of things to just check when we're looking at this language or when we're looking at these documents. Just because you never know, it might be, you just never know. So it's always something that we want to look at. Yeah, so we've got a pretty good idea of what this stuff looks like. No, I mean, this is legit. So the question is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, is this how we typically do things? It just gives you everything.
Yeah.
Right. We could do that in this. So if we just do data, it's just going to print the whole thing. Now I can look at the whole thing. It didn't give me everything. Right. But you can see how there's a dot there, and then it gives us the last part. So this is sort of akin to that, where you would do a select star to get data like this. Now we have that data, and somebody saved it as a CSV file, and we're reading it in. But this is typically what I would do when I get a new data source. I want to know, I want to look at it. I want to check to see what my nulls look like. Like, I want to know what the numeric types are, because depending upon what I'm going to do with this data, that stuff matters, especially if I'm going to end up modeling with it. That stuff matters. Those column types matter. That is a very, very good point. let's all make a checklist together. So I'll put this in the document so it is documented. So this is literally, I actually have these sort of set up as questions. What are we missing? What kind of functions do we use? So let's do right here plus, just going to do a paragraph. So thing like checklist, new data checklist. Oh no, where'd it go? It's gone. New data checklist. So let's, with the assumption that we've read in our case, we have an object called data in there. Assuming we have that in there, the first thing I would do is run head. Is that gonna change? It is not gonna change. I'm gonna do markdown. Okay. Okay, so what was that?
We were asking about, is head the same, in the same thinking of like equals the top, he's the top.
Exactly.
And, she said, so we have head and tail, so what's the middle? She said body, so we left.
There is, I believe there's a package that will just randomly sample data and give that back to you in a similar style. But to do that, you need a random number generator. So it's more overhead essentially. So head is easy because it's just like, give me 1 through 10. That's why people do that. But that's a good call out for sure. Why do we only look at the same ones? Or why do we only look at the top or the bottom? Well, it's the easiest, it's the lightest load to return when we're looking at stuff. But
something is alphabetical order, chronological, you're only going to get, like information that, and it might benefit them or not, depending on maybe.
Right. So folks online, if you didn't hear that, this actually gets to something I was hoping somebody would bring up. What order, when we're calling head, why is it those ones that we get? Like, why are those the top ones? Is it arranged? Is there a particular column that it's looking at to arrange the data? And we can just look. What do we see? Looks. My guess is that it's arranged on the first one. And then maybe name, because if we look at the names on here, A, and then we look at tail, W, 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 Z, Z, Z. So it looks like we're going on. Yeah, it looks like we're going on name and potentially P class is what that's ordered by. For sure. Yeah, for sure. The same way you can do it in SQL, you can do it in this too. Let's see if we can do, is it range? Come on now. Or is it reorder, reindex by, let's try fair. I think I have to do that. Yeah, you're mad at me. That's what I figured. Nope. I thought it was a range. Maybe I'm thinking of. Oh my. If you get tab after the period, then you get everything. Is it reorder? Reorder levels. So reorder levels is going to be if you have like categorical data. I don't know why my brain isn't working. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But we can reorder that. But the data, Pandas read in this data as like, it sort of gets this in the metadata. When you do read CSV, it's making some assumptions about the first couple columns and it's ordering with those. So yes, we can reorder if we need to, but for the sake of like overhead and whatnot, we usually just, whatever it is good enough. Yeah. And that's gonna bug me. I'm gonna have to look that up. So Pandas is very like, you guys remember we looked last time, it gets like 17 million, or it has like 330 million downloads, which is insane. And so it's very popular. I personally use a different syntax, Apache Spark. I use like Spark SQL and stuff, and that is a little bit different. So my Pandas is rusty, so I have to apologize. Right, so where were we? We were making a list of the things that we want to do when we get a data set. And the first one that we did was heads, tails, look at the data set. Let's get another tick there. So this is specifically for making this look like code down here. So I'm writing markdown code here, and then it's translating to that. So it looks like it's kind of semantic. It's like a design decision that I'm sort of making. Yep. Oh, in this case, I'm just saying no. You can do one or the other or both. I'm not saying divide by anything. I could just do or and or. So those are the first ones we do. Let's see. We checked D types. Remember, we looked at that stuff. So we did data.d types. Do you guys remember what that did? Right, exactly. What kind of variables? Yep. Are we dealing with text, which they call objects? We're doing with numeric, which they call ints or floats. What other questions do you have about data when you get it? That's shape. Exactly. I gotta make these pretty. And so in my mind, what's helpful about shape is, let's say that I have been waiting on data from somebody for marketing for like weeks, and they finally give it to me, and I'm like, yes, and I get in there, and I run shape, and I see that it's like 1-to-1. Like obviously somebody gave me the wrong data set, and like I know that right off the bat. Like I could do head and see that too, but like shape is going to be even quicker. Like shape just lets me know that there's data in there. Like that's the first thing I want to know. Like, so you could argue you could do shape first. It's up to you. So these are in no order. These are just things that we want to have to think about when we get this stuff. So let's see. We've looked at our column types. We've looked at shape. We've looked at head. For me personally, I want to look through columns and see which ones are NAs, right? How many nulls do we have? Which we had a couple different ways to do that. Let's scroll down here. There we go. So we can do not null within a particular column. I believe we can do nulls on everything too. So yeah, is null. Check your nulls. We want to know if they're in there. If we see a lot, we want to go column by column and check that stuff out. And that's important because maybe there's the nulls exist for a reason, but we don't need them. So that sort of brings us to, maybe you get to a point when you're going through this data, we're doing this sort of cleansing and initial EDA, and you see something that doesn't make sense. And like, we're knowledgeable about the sunglasses data or the Titanic data or whatever we're looking at, but like this one's really a head scratcher. That's when we go to whomever we got the data from, or we go to somebody else that can make decisions about this and say, this is what I found. Does this make sense? And then you can start a conversation with that stuff. But being knowledgeable and data literate about this stuff lets you talk to them about that stuff as well. So checking nulls. So we call pandas is null. And remember, we'll put data in here. And remember, this returns true false. This returns that Boolean stuff. And so we can run just a sum on that and get the total amount, which is what we did here.
I don't know, did you have to like alias it to call it PD or just automatically?
So the question was, did we have to alias PD? And the answer is absolutely. So you can scroll back up, and usually you want to import packages, that's like the first, or libraries right away. In this case, we did look at some of the metadata, and here we go. Boom.
Okay, so you should always, like, when you're importing pandas or whatever, import as.
Let's add it to the list. I love it. I mean, I'm going to put that first, honestly. Import pandas as PD. And that's, I would say that's relatively, oh no, Preston's in here. Oh my gosh, get out of here, Preston. My boss is, well, boss, manager, friend, whatever. He's going to give me shit for this tomorrow, I'm sure. I just cursed. It's going to look bad for Builder Trend. So yeah, import pandas as PD. That's obviously like the number one thing we want to do. So what do we got so far? We've imported our packages. We've looked at the data. We've checked data types. We've got shape. We're looking at nulls. Let's go back and kind of look through here, see what else we did. Column values, this is a little redundant, right? Because when we do head, we see that stuff. The reason you might want to call this, though, is what if you have a data set with like 50 columns, right? And we can't see all that stuff up here. Maybe it gets truncated. And when I say truncated, that means like for the sake of showing us on the screen, they cut it off.
I had a situation where I know like some certain names were like similar, only like the difference would be like, say, P class now or B class, like, I don't know, it was like, let's just say that, like, there were like, I know that I had like similar wording was saying, and I would get confused, so like, I wouldn't know that there's more than one of that similar name.
Right.
So the array would have helped. Now, like an array would have been nice.
Right.
I just see P class with that example, but you know what I mean.
No, no, that's exactly right. And oh, thanks, Preston. So yeah, and folks online, if you didn't hear that, the idea is this was directly applicable to Brenda as far as names looking similar. And so doing this really allows you to check your assumptions and get those column names figured out exactly. And so this sort of illustrates, again, we talked about this, that there is no one right answer for any of this. Maybe you don't need to call this the columns values, and maybe you do. It just depends upon your data set. If the names don't make sense, if you just need to get more clarification on that stuff. So either way, we're going to add it. Put it on the list. That's maybe one we could put, yeah, we'll just put it down here. All right, so we have 6 things, technically 7 if we're counting heads and or tails. Okay. Whoop. What's going on with this one? Describe. So this is giving us sort of a numeric observations of our numeric data, the count, the average, standard deviation. And then are you guys familiar with 25, 50, 75? Do these numbers mean anything to you? I mean, so they're called quantiles. All right, so you guys learned that in Tableau.
Yeah.
Quantiles. And that's sort of like, See, folks online, they're kind of discussing what happened in Tableau. And you guys went through that like the third class. Did you guys talk about a first class? Gotcha. Did Charlie talk about a box and whisker plot or a box plot? Box and whisker.
You have the data set and then we'll kind of tell you like how high you can go.
Right. So what it was giving you, and actually this is great. Keep this in mind. We're going to get into more of the visualization stuff, specifically this in a little bit here. But this is exactly what is on the box plot. When you think about the box and whisker plot, the box portion, the top is 75, the bottom is 25. That middle is going to be 50%, technically the median. And then you've got the whiskers are going to be the min and the max. And so numerically, this is exactly what this is representing on here, but it's just showing you the numbers. It's not showing you visually. And so that's what those mean. That's good. I mean, I'm glad that you guys remember that stuff. I'm glad quantile rang a bell. That's exactly what we're looking for here. Gotcha. So describe. Obviously, that's big. And again, these are all numeric things, so we're not getting too visual yet, but it's good enough. But this is sort of the intuition for wanting to visualize a box and whisker plot, right? So let's put it on the list. All right, back to it. We got D types. We did that. We did nulls. We can always run help on functions. That's not necessarily something we're doing for data cleaning or initial EDA or anything like that, but it's just good to know. Maybe we'll have like honorable mention help just in case we need it. We'll put that down here. Remember, we can wrap that around any function that we're using, and we'll give us some more information about that. Or we can go online and look at documentation, but either way. So cool. We've got a new data checklist. And like quite literally, this is what I do when I get data. This is the stuff I want to check out, especially if I'm getting something that is like a manual upload, like a CSV file. If somebody from marketing says, hey, I need to do a visualization with this. This is the stuff I'm going to do, is I'm going to make sure that I know what's going on with it. And so then when I do get into it, I'm confident, right? I'm confident that I can tell a story with this data and that I understand what's going on with it. And just that allows me to do my job better. Data describe is going to take any of our numeric number columns that are just numbers, and it's going to give us a count of how many are in there that are not null. It's going to give us the average, the standard deviation, and then those quantiles. Exactly. Let me get rid of this one. Trash it. Get out of here. Okay. So from there, we can get a little more nitty gritty. Like if we're doing nulls, if we're checking nulls, we can sum them. Remember, to get an idea of how many are in there. And remember, we haven't really manipulated the data too much yet. We're really just like taking its pulse, checking its weight. We're just doing like all the sort of standard stuff. We're not really changing anything yet. And so then we would start to change stuff if we wanted to. So now we're going to get into more of the actual cleaning stuff. Remember last time we tried to drop NAs and those two columns, the ones where they were found versus not, meant you always had an NA at least in one of the columns, so we dropped everything. So now we're getting into data cleaning. And let's think about what's our checklist for data cleaning. Let's go here. Data cleaning is more, a little more nuanced because we need business knowledge to do this properly, right? So for the sake of the Titanic data, maybe we want to filter out everyone that was found because we have information on them, the family's got information on them, and we just want to look at people whose bodies were not found. So in terms of data cleaning, that means we're going to filter things out. So that's a question, obviously. So what are we trying to do? What question are we trying to answer? That informs how we're going to clean the data. What questions are we trying to answer? And so then what does that mean for the data? How does that translate into data cleaning? Go back here. I'm trying to find. So either filling, this has been erroring for me for some reason, and I don't necessarily know why. Okay, we're probably just gonna skip that for just a second. Say that again.
I think it was hard for us to hear, so I'm sure it was hard.
Yeah. Say that again. Which, where I was doing ages? Yours might be different than mine. Oh, here it is. Yeah, right here. So this is, I don't know why this is erroring. Oh, now it's, yep. So in this case, we have filled the NAs for body with 0, and then home destination, if that was empty, we filled that with unknown, and that makes sense, right? We just don't know it. So now, when we take a look at this, we can see home destination unknown. We don't know where those people were. Body is 0. That means we don't know which one that was because they were never recovered or they made it off, right? This person survived, so they have a 0 there too. So then age would be the next one that we're looking at. So we're saying PD is null, look at age, give me the values, sum them up. And so this gets into what I was talking about earlier. So back to our list. In this case, we're going to assume we don't want to filter anything out. We have the business knowledge to know to replace these things with something else. So for body, we're putting in 0. For home destination, if we have an NA, we're putting in unknown. And then for age, we're gonna look at the average of all the ages that we do have, and we're just gonna put that in. And that's something that's just a method to sort of fill in missing data if we don't want to lose any rows, right? Because yes, this data set is 1,309 observations rows, but that in the context of data is actually not a lot. Personally, I'm used to working with millions and millions of rows. to do statistical analysis and or machine learning. So if that's something I want to do here, I want all the data I can get. I don't want to filter anything out. So let's assume that's what we want to do here. So we're going to fill age. We're going to fill that in. Any NAs we're going to fill in with the average or the mean. So fill NAs with mean, which we know mean is average.
Is that like a particular row?
This one here? Yeah, that's a great point. Let's go through that. So we have just fill NA with the mean, right? And so I'm totally gonna get to your point, but I just want to pick this apart real quick. Yeah. So if we run just age, that gives us, this is just the age column. And we can see at 301 we have an NAN. And so then if we do another dot after this and hit tab, and we hit tab, there we go. We got another laundry list of stuff to do to this. And I mean, it's seriously, Pandas is amazing with the amount of stuff that you can do with this. So here's median. So mean. Here's our average age. Average age is just about 30 years old. And then similarly, what if we did median? 28. So they're very similar. And what do we know about median? Median is the 50th percentile. So let's compare 28 with our describe up here. If I can find it. Age, 50%, 28. Just little things like that too. Just like confirming, my old boss used to call it sanity checks. He used to always, he'd write out code and get everything done. And sometimes when you're coding, you're so in your head and everything is making sense and you just need to stop and be like, can you just come take a look at this? We do that a lot at Buildertrend, specifically when remember when I talked about version control and I talked about we're merging pieces of code with other code. We don't want to do that haphazardly. We need somebody I always have a reviewer on all of my PRs, our pull requests, to make sure, like I said, it's a sanity check. Even if it's like the most simple thing, if one thing messes up, you could potentially knock the whole thing over, and we don't want that. So that's sort of what I did here. It's like, oh, median is 50%. Let's go check the quantiles. Yep, that lines up. That means my data set, it's the same one. It's just a little sanity check. But back to your point, we've looked at median. We see that this one is going to fill it with the average. So let's do this again. And I'm going to change the number. And you guys can change the number too if you want. So we specifically see 1305 is an NAN, right? And so we're going to fill it with average. And remember, our average was right under 30 years old. If we look at 305, we can see that NAN has been filled with the mean. And we want to do median. We can just throw that in there. And there's our 28, just like we saw up top, just like we did over here. And so then if we do 1291, this is just using this index number right here, and it's giving us one value. So if we put in 1305, we get that NAN. If we do it up here, and we do 1305, now we get our median, right? Because this little thing is just saying, slice me off just that one piece of data that's at 1305. Does that make sense, what that's doing? Got it. And so then there's some other methods we can do. We can do median, we can do mean, but there's another method we could fill NA called, this one is ffill, where the F stands for forward fill. So remember up here, we had 1305. We filled it with the median and we got 28, right? And so if we do forward fill and we look at that 1305 number, it is the same as the one before it, right? That's what that forward fill means. It means if you're NA, the one that was behind you is gonna come forward, and that's gonna take. So that's another potential way to fill in NAs. But again, this all depends upon the business context, right? What are we trying to do? Does it make sense to do this? And so in this case, maybe not, but at least it's an option. Does anybody want to guess what backfill might do? It just goes the other way, right? If this will, I don't know why this is taking forever to run. It's the opposite of this. So whereas in this case, 1304 was brought forward to 1305 and it's the same value, right? In this case, it took 1306. It just went the other direction to fill that NA. Does that make sense? Sure. So we've got a blank number here, right? So if we use forward fill, it's going to take the one right before it. See how these two values are the same? So this was NaN. We said forward fill it. Any NaNs, it's going to be the one as it goes down, it's gonna move that one over into the NA. So it's going to duplicate it into that one.
What are the repercussions for that?
Exactly. That's right. Like what like business wise, what does this mean? Does it even make sense to do it in this context to move that age forward? Those are, in this case, I would say no, I wouldn't do it. But I've had run-ins where pricing is they'll give us one price and then anything below it is just assumed to be the same price. And that's just how a particular, I can't remember exactly what data set that was, but I had to use this exact forward fill to actually put values there so I could do analysis on it.
I guess I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, okay, so 1305 is NA, right?
Yep.
And let's say, so it's 1306 and 1307. How does it work for it to be like, and you fill it if those numbers are also?
It just takes the last one that was there.
Whatever is available.
Yeah, whatever the last actual value was. So if 1306, 1307, and 1308 were NA, they would all be 14.5.
Oh, so okay, if you're anything that's NA going forward in the back.
The last, yep. The backfill goes from the other way.
Got it.
So backfill, if you're at 1305, backfill will be 1304, 1308. It's going back.
Yeah,
Okay, and forward fill will be 1306, 1307.
right. Depending upon where your NAs are. Yeah.
Okay, so if we had 1407, then that would be forward fill. And
It just depends upon the method that you're using when you fill NA. So in this case, the value from 1304 replaced the one before it. If we do backfill, it's going to look at the one on the other side, right? Because we use 1304 forward fill comes here, 1305 backfill looks at the one behind it.
it goes 1305, 1304, 1308.
Right. It's looking from that. Yeah. Okay. You got it. Yep.
I was just making sure I'm not time.
Yeah. And it's weird. Like this stuff, this is kind of some of the stuff that I really had to like think about visually to understand what's going on. And that's the best way to do it, I suppose. just like see it, like actually see that it's doing what I assume that it's doing. And it's tricky at first and it's weird to wrap your head around, but you do it enough, you get some confidence, it will all click. And again, I don't expect you guys to do this, be able to go to school and be like, I learned how to fill NAs, let's go. Like we're not there. But this is something that I deal with on a daily basis is how to deal with NAs. And these are just different ways we can do that. Okay. We are at a good break time, I think. I'm going to put a banner up and I'm going to remember to take it down. Yeah, let's go back to that. Yep, and I've added these to the actual stuff for class 2. So we're gonna say, but again, this goes back to Brenda. You said, why would you? Does this make sense to do this? Does it make sense to fill with the one before?
Like, fraud, like if you are reporting sales or like profit, I don't know why, and like it's not true numbers, so you're just filling it because you have no didn't provide.
Yeah,
Like I can see that.
that's a bad analyst. that's an analyst that's probably going to jail or something. You know, if you're reporting bad numbers, yeah. It just depends upon what we're trying to do. Like that's literally all it comes down to. But yeah, we will take a 10-minute break here. Let's see if I can do it. Can I edit this? Everybody come back. 7:06. Wow, I did it. Okay, and I'm even going to set a timer on my watch so I remember this time too.
No, he was very better at asking. I'm sure you should have been, I'm sure he's basketball class.
Do you have classes? Do you have questions for Nate?
Yeah, but we're just wondering, when we get our certificate for secret.
Did that not come through yet? Huh.
I like bond one, the other one I think was good, so I'm just kind of nervous about it.
Yeah. I'm trying to, Nate and I have been talking about how to do like assignments in this class, and it's like, it's tough to just be like, code something. Like, that's why I want to more know like what questions you guys have to be able to speak to that. And then that will sort of inform, based on those questions, then I could sort of write assignments tailored to answering those questions and have you guys kind of go through them. So that's probably what I'll do.
Working the data, I won't say it was super easy. It was good. I
Yeah.
figured it out. It was an assignment where we were like, it was like a pre-work, like we were preparing the data, like assigning the primary keys, and foreign keys, and
Yeah.
assigning like of these categories of data, which one would be one to many to one.
That's hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Even for me, even like to anyone, that can be weird unless you are seeing it, like
Yeah.
actually seeing the data. Yeah.
But no, some of it's like, that was good.
Yep.
For me, I was just like, I guess this would be important, you know? I'm just
Right,
like,
right.
So that's the one that I was on when I was just really, and I didn't, when I submitted it, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The one I was talking about, the one we were like preparing it at, because it was of me.
Does he need a receipt?
My uncle
Yeah, that's saying. I know. Yeah, that's tough. It is vegan.
Hey, you know I know that.
Yeah. Oh, my sweet. IKEA, like, bag. Okay. You got some press release. No. Is that? No, I don't know. Remember? I don't know. Remember? I don't know. No. You don't stop that. Say what? Oh, you took it now. I told you. He's on the way. Is that? She's on her way? I don't know. It's kind of, whatever, if I can. Yeah. I'm on, hop on right now. Just over my lap.
Oh, Anna is here.
Brother, what do you want? Everybody,
Letter or number, you don't have to say this.
Yeah, so varchar is obviously within SQL. In Python, they just call that an object, and it means character. And you can do either one. You can do characters or numbers in there, but you can't operate on those numbers, right? Because they're varchars or they're objects. Like you can't actually add them together.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So in this case, we're taking something that is binary and we're changing it to zeros and ones, so it's easier to do stuff on. So let's do a help on we're calling pandas. We alias to PD, get dummies, and it gives us, again, a lot of this is jargon and a k-1 dummies at a yeah. But here we go. This is what it's doing. It's changing everything to zeros and ones. That's exactly what we want. So if we look at our sex column, again, we want to change these to zeros and ones. So we're going to do get dummy, and we're going to put our data set in there, and we're going to specify the column that we want to do it to. And then this is going to make a new column, and we're going to give it a prefix of sex. And so when we run that, and then we run it, we now have two columns. This is kind of overkill in my opinion. I would just have one column. I don't know. In my opinion, you're getting the same information. If one is 1, then you know the other one is 0. But this just illustrates something you could do. But does that make sense? Why we would want to change that and create two columns? And then I'm not sure what it's doing here. So these are the column names. It didn't do anything. Huh. Let me run this and see what's going on. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what a function is. This is something that I touched on very early on, and it probably shouldn't have talked about it that quick. But we're going to make a function where we pass two things into it. We pass in whatever our data set is and whatever the variable name is that we want to make a dummy variable out of. So we're going to go through this line by line. This first line is making that dummy variable. Remember, it's the same thing we did right here. It's saying get dummies. We're using this data, this column, and this is the prefix. Similarly, we're doing the same thing right here. Now we are dropping the previous column and we are adding our new column. So actually, maybe we'll do this step by step because it'll make a little more sense. So our var name. What? Why are you mad at me? Did we already lose it? I'm going to run everything above real quick. Oh, see, and so something's happening with my environment right now where there's just too much stuff going on. This is erroring for some reason. And remember, when something like this happens, for me, I'm going to restart kernel and clear all output. So all this stuff is going to go away. And there, it's all gone. So now we will go back up. I'm trying to remember which one was erroring. We will go here. We will run to this cell. Run all above selected cell. Make sure this works. There we go. Looking good. So then boom, 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 boom. Oh man, I don't know why this is not. Okay, now I know why it's not working. Okay. Okay, so we're back to this. We're back to our dummy variables, right? Now I want to remove the old column, the regular sex column, and just add these two instead. And so I am going to use drop from our data set. So if we hit tab after our data set, remember we get the whole stuff we can do. I'm going to drop this column on axis 1. Remember, because that means we're going down. And so let's take a look at that column now. It's gone. It is no longer there. Looks like a bunch of my stuff is gone. Whatever. So now we're going to take our dummy variable, right? So we're going to take this guy because we removed the other one, and we're going to add it to this data frame where it's now gone. And there it is. So we've accomplished what we wanted. I'm showing you in sort of sections to illustrate what the function is doing. And so if we want to, we can create a function. So this is exactly what our first one did. Again, this is making those two dummy variables. Then we are dropping the variable that has been a dummy variable, and then we are adding the dummy variable back to the data frame.
Can you go back to?
Of course.
The dummy source that equals PD that get dummy?
Yep.
That is prefix set.
Right here.
Yes, when you first made it. 0, 1. Can you just go through that again?
Yeah. So if we look at our first row.
So does get dummies automatically make it a Boolean?
Yes.
Saying get dummies makes it true or false?
Yep.
You don't have to write.
Yep. I mean, if we want to get into true semantics, it is Boolean, but it's not true or false. In this case, it's 0, 1. Okay. But your mindset is right. Okay. But just to clarify, you can do true and false. In fact, I wonder if I can first dummy type. Let's go with, let's see if this works. Boolean. Nope. Let's see what we can do. So bool, we can do exactly what you just said. I just did them. There it is. But do you sort of get how this is overkill a little bit? Like, obviously, if it's true here, it's going to be false there. They're always the opposite of one another. I think you can do just one. Columns drop first. True. Yeah. So if we use drop first, that just means we're just going to drop the first one. So we just have sex male and that. So let's alter our function to do this because that's what we decided to do, right? You thought true false made more sense. I agree. I thought we don't need two columns. Let's just have the one. So let's go down to our function. And we said drop first equals true. And dtype. And everybody remembers dtype, right? We've called that before on a data set, and it gave us the data type. And we're going to do the same thing here. So now we have a function. This function wants a df, is like the function of the variable. It says, so I need something here, and I need something here. So if we come down, and I'll run this. if we come down to this function that we made, and we click that, we click tab, there should be df in here, right? There it is. That's what we defined. And our df in this case is, where's our OG data? Did they already lose everything? We'll just do data. And then variable name, that's another thing we defined. In this case, it's going to be sex. And we're going to run it. Oh, and then the other part of that is after we do all this in our function, it's like we did all this stuff and it's ready to go. So now we're going to use return. We're going to say, now I did all this stuff to this. Here's your data set with all of the things that we wanted our function to do. So right. This here? This. Oh, yeah. This is actually running the function. So it's like, yeah. So this is now, yeah, this function is now in our environment. And so I can use it more than once. So is there something else in here that is Boolean? I don't know if there is. I think that's it. Okay, so it's just, that's the only one we can do it to. But if there was something else in here that was binary, we could put that column in here and it would do the same thing. So we can use this many times. This gets closer of illustrating the power of Python, because like not only do we have all these libraries that do stuff for us, but like we can take different pieces of different ones and build our own thing to do something and then use it repeatedly. No, there are no dumb questions. What's that? It's a function. But within functions, there are parameters. So like in this case, I would say variables. In this case, we're saying I'm gonna define a function that's called create dummies. And this function has two inputs. It has the data frame, and then it has the name of the data frame column that we want to turn into a dummy. And so then if you give it that information, so in this case, our data frame is data. And, oh, there's a comment. Who is it? Oh, marvelous, taking off. Peace out, homie. So we have our data frame and we have the name of the column that we want to dummy. So we've illustrated that right here. Data is what we've been working with the whole time. That's the column that we want to change to dummy. And we can see right here that that's what has occurred. How's everybody else doing? Yeah. Okay. So this is something else we got in our toolbox, right? When we're going through our data, we've cleaned it, we know what's going on. Now we're getting into the analysis side. Now it makes sense. We want to change this to true, false, because it is easier to work with some of our models and whatnot. So this is just another thing we got in the toolbox. I'll put it on there. We can create functions to feature engineer. And I can spell properly. There we go. What is this guy? Okay, there we go. And so then I have a little section here. Obviously, this probably should go after this. Our list should go after this. But the big questions you want to ask yourself are, what are you trying to accomplish? And what tools do you have to accomplish that stuff? What am I trying to accomplish? I'm trying to fill all the NAs with the average of that column. What tools do I have to use that? Oh, I can use fill NA, and then I could put the data column dot and see everything drop down, and I can hit mean or median or whatever I want, and then I can fill all that stuff in. And so, yeah, key concepts of everything we've been talking about is with Python, it's very easy to get like very centered in on like the little bit of code that you're doing. So it's like really good to sort of zoom out and be like, hold on, what's the big picture? Like, what am I trying to accomplish with this data set? Oh, I'm trying to clean it for marketing because they need to do some pivot tables or something in Excel. Or I'm getting it in such a way that I can do some visualization and I could pass it off to marketing and they could put it in a PowerPoint or something like that. And then we can, sell more sunglasses or whatever we're trying to do. So being able to understand the big picture, we've been talking a lot about data literacy, right? Being able to just like look at data and know what type of column it is. And already like right away, you see a column that has numbers in it, but it says varchar, it says object, and we're like, that's not right. That needs to be numeric. Those things they start to make sense. And then similarly, breaking down tasks. When we broke down that dummy variable function, we were able to see like sort of one by one what's going on. So obviously we want the big picture, but we can break things apart into smaller, more manageable pieces. And go that way as well. And then Charity, I think you said in the first class, you were like, so there's multiple right answers, or there's no one right answer. And that's so important too. There are always different ways to do this. We could recode the function that was in there, the dummy variable function, many different ways and accomplish the same thing. And then checking our assumptions. I mentioned that a lot. And then when in doubt, ask ChatGPT. If your code's not working, seriously, copy it, put it in ChatGPT and be like, can you debug this for me? And literally ChatGPT will probably debug it for you. I cannot stress that enough. Like I have a feeling this class itself is going to change quite a bit over the coming years, and there will be less code and more like low code solutions because of how powerful they are. And so that's the stuff that we're going to kind of get into right now. It's still very good to know this stuff because there are some things you just have to do by hand. But yeah, we're going to get into some of the more low code solutions for doing visualizations. Should be a lot of fun. So before we do that, we've sort of talked about, we've been getting close. We've been doing initial EDA. Now that that first part is now done, right? Our task was to clean the data, and that's what was our central mission. Now we want to learn from the data. We want to see if there's a correlation with the Titanic data, maybe more men died than women, which I actually think is true. Didn't they do women and children first? So men probably did die. We could go figure that out right now, and that's an important piece of information that we could glean. And so now we're thinking of EDA in terms of analysis and start to put the building blocks together of a story that we can tell. And so, yeah, if everybody wants to go to the app, the link at the bottom, app.notebook.io, and we're going to sign up for that real quick. And I'm happy to help troubleshoot if anybody has issues. Happy to make Ted's account if it's not.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you.
Yes, please.
Logging into, so I brought that up. It says log in and Notable, right? And then I didn't know if I could just continue with Google, or do I need to use the email address that we provided with?
I would assume you can do anything that you want. You can even, I think I did Google.
Okay, I just was checking to make sure it wasn't something you needed to see. So I would have to use
Google should work, or if you have a non-Google email address, you can use that. Is anybody? And I'll do it with my GitHub just so I can show everyone on here. So here's my GitHub. I'm going to authorize. It's going to redirect me.
All right, I'm in. It was
Great.
a-
Okay, so mine already has the thing associated with it. So I don't want to break this. I'm actually going to go back. But Ted is in. Everybody else? Anybody else having issues?
So you want to know, so I'm on Jupyter, but you want us to, because, trying to figure out what.
Sorry, there's another app. There's a link in there for.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry. Here, I'll go back to it on the page.
it's the one you posted on Slack.
Yep, I posted on Slack earlier today. It's down here at the bottom of visualization where it says app.notebook.io. Notable, sorry.
Like, I was at a kind of content.
So this is going to be similar to that, but it's newer. Literally, some of the stuff that we're going to be doing today was released like weeks ago. And it's really, really cool and powerful. I think you guys are going to like it. So when you're in, you should see something like whatever your name is, your space. And then when everybody is good to go, give me a holler. Is anybody not getting in?
So I got to the app on the mobile.
Here, I'll pop over.
Then you just. It's mobile, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah, you're there.
Oh, we don't need to do the. Oh, and for some reason I was looking at
Oh, sorry, that's
this. I was looking at this.
the wrong thing there, didn't I?
Well, you
Yep.
went to visualization, that's that.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe it's something. Because we kind of, this.
Yeah, we kind of went over that a little bit, so that's sort of more supplemental stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I couldn't figure out how to do that.
Oh, so if you go on Anaconda and you do double click sample notebook. Oh, you have something searching.
Well, yeah, because I was trying
So
to do this.
then.
Oh, okay, so
One
that
of
was
those
just a
is-
reference to that.
Yeah, one of those is like a visualization one that I was planning on doing, but this one I think is a better
Got it.
visualization. But it's still there if you ever want to go through it.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
How do I do this again? To
Yeah,
actually,
pick it up.
that's it. It's a wrap.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get to that.
Next time. Okay. So, we're out.
Okay. Does it look like? So what does yours look like again? It doesn't
This
look
is
like
my
that?
first project.
It's a welcome to Notable.
Yeah.
First, it's like first.
Yeah, that's.
Yours is, like, you obviously were your nurse.
Well, not that much. Oh, my first project. What can you do in Notable?
I think it's because you had, maybe you had.
Yes. This is cool. Everybody online get there too? We're on the Python notebook. What can you do in the Notable notebook?
How do you create the space again?
You should already have something created. So if you just hit the thing in the corner, that should take you to a page that looks like this.
Mine doesn't. It's weird. It says switch to light mode.
Really? In the left-hand corner?
Yeah.
I want to go to light mode. Interesting. Space attributes? No. If I stop sharing, are you comfortable with sharing for a second? And I can
Yeah.
maybe talk you through it? Cool. 1 second. Yeah, go ahead. There it is. Oh, why am I not? Okay. So, weird. Yours does look community.notebook. It looks like you might be on the wrong thing.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like you're on community. So these are like blog things. Try to just go to app.notable.io. See if that does it at the top. There we go.
Yeah, thank you.
No, that's all right. I'm glad we got it figured out.
Okay.
Cool. I will start presenting again. Whoop. There's Slack. There's Arc. Cool. Anybody else having issues? Everybody on the first project? So what you can do in Notable. So yeah, this is like, I think the Anaconda Cloud, I think that's been around for 2 or 3 years. Notable, this is like super new. This is like what I was looking for to teach this class. Like if I had known this had been around when this was going, I would have done almost all the curriculum in here. Well, maybe mine is taking forever to load. Oh no, we brought down the server. No, I hope not.
So after you click on the first project.
Okay. If it doesn't work, click out and try and click into it again. So I'm not going to make everybody watch the video, but you're certainly welcome to outside of class if you want to. But yeah, so this is a Jupyter adjacent, I guess I would say. There's a lot of the same sort of like syntax in terms of like you're going line by line. If you need to restart the kernel and rerun everything, that stuff is still the same. Similar to Deep Note, we can write SQL if we want to. You can write R, but you need to start a different. We're not even getting into that. Don't worry about R. Yeah. So let's scroll down. We have Markdown cells. So Markdown is the stuff that I was writing in. I think if you double click this is what Markdown looks like. So like, if I do the ticks here and write cool code, you can see that on the other side, it comes up as like looking like code and stuff. So that's what Markdown is. We're not going to do too much of that. We are going to concentrate much more, obviously, on the Python side of things. Right. So code cells allow you to write Python that can be executed within the document, just like we were doing in Jupyter Notebooks. So let's write this. Let's try and run this first one. This was erroring for me earlier. It looks, starting kernel. Okay. So when you run this, it's the same thing as it was in Python. We're going to do Shift Enter. It should start the kernel. And yeah, I don't know. Is this? Oh, there it goes. Nope. Gotcha. We don't really need to worry about this one too much. I'm not sure why that's not working. But we are interested in this DEX, Data Explorer. This allows us to do visual EDA with super low code. And this is what we are going to play around with. So if we go down here, to this happiness DF. And if we shift enter that, we should get a box and whisker plot. So let's, is that showing up for you guys?
You said, let's explore decks with an example. Click on it.
So yeah, there should be a happiness data frame or happiness DF.
Yeah.
Try it for yourself. If you run that, it should give you a box and whisker plot.
Mine's not whisker, but it's got-
Shift enter, or you can hit the play button right here. Yep.
It's like dots. It's kind of long. Oh, no, it's in.
I'm still on the phone first.
Is it? Man.
Oh,
Sorry, guys. I was
yeah.
hoping this would be.
It's right there. Well, this is.
Yeah. So everybody's going to pop up a little bit different.
Oh, okay.
I guess.
I was expecting somebody
Yeah.
like yours, and I was like, what did you click? I did the same thing, and then it's an error. So, okay, because I maybe did I just did a, no, that's, oh, no, it's just. But
Well,
it says error, meaning is not defined.
let's try the old.
Yep, mine's the same thing after that. It says name error, name.
So I'm going to restart and clear all. I wonder why mine is working. So we should be able to. Well, guys, you might be going back to Jupiter here. Please send us information on how to reduce this issue to help you figure it out. What if I comment this out? Okay, so it looks like the first chunk of code where we're importing pandas, this is something I haven't really talked about yet, is if you use the hash mark or like the number sign in front of text, especially code, it will do what's called comment out, meaning it's not going to run it anymore. So if we do that, if we comment out the happiness DF and run this, I do not get an error. And then if we come over to the side here, you should be able to see, you should see a thing called happiness DF. Here, I'll come over and double check.
But I did run the Python cells for import and recipe. And then I did. So I did this.
Oh, it's working for you.
Right, but we were looking at, we will be below that.
Yep. So what you've done now is this is in your environment. So now you run that, and you got scatter plot. It's yours. So go up to the other one above it.
And we're Jupiter was the issue. So
Keep going.
we'll run the, yeah, on that, and Jupiter was the sky.
Yep, the one right above it.
How long is that?
Yeah, try and run that again.
Okay, so, Brandon, the input.
Yeah, we go down.
Yay!
Right.
Yep, and you should have,
And then go back.
and then go back to, keep going down. Sorry. Keep going down. That, try run that.
Because I did that for me too, and then it said error.
I'm getting error.
You should get a cool scatter plot. Yep, you got it. You got it.
Oh, I did what I did. I didn't press the import first. I like it first.
Oh, wow, so you're going to be further. Yeah, you got the scatter plot. Right?
Yes, but what I did was when I got on here, I like
Yes.
scrolled down, press play, and I
Gotcha.
did
So we're going to get to that. Make sure.
stop.
All right. Sorry, folks online. Is everybody seeing? We should be able to run this first chunk. For some reason, it's erroring for me, and I don't know. Maybe I'll reach out to them and they will give me stuff. Anywho, we should run happiness DF, And you guys should see a scatter plot, I believe. It's funny, mine says scatter plot, but it's a box and whisker. I have absolutely no idea why. So you should be seeing a scatter plot, and you can hover over the dots, and you can see sort of what's going on. So what this data set is it is a data set about happiness scores, basically all over the world. And so if we go to if you go to configure, you should have on the right-hand side, you should see a configure charts. And there is a data prism suggestions. Is everybody seeing that? So we hit configure. Go ahead and just click that. This is going to give us like a multitude of visualizations. You should see dumbbell, combined bar chart, yada, yada. And so you should see a box plot with outliers. Do you guys see this one?
Yeah, I'm getting it.
And so if you, let's say that this is one that we want to take a look at. There is an expand button right here, and you could switch to this view. And where did it go? And here it is. So this is cool to me. This is looking by the different, well, not necessarily countries, but parts of the world. And this is their trust in the government. The higher the score, the more the trust. The lower the score, the less they trust the government. So we can see North America, the mean is about 2.44. So like people kind of trust the government, but not really. And then look at New Zealand. Like everybody loves the government. What's going on there? Or they don't love them, but they trust them. Yeah. So this is another way to kind of do EDA. Is everybody able to sort of replicate this on theirs?
I was at the top, was on first,
Yes.
and then the option, and then they gave me an error to an error.
Yes. If you could, oh, you're doing your own thing? Yeah.
So I was here, and I pressed configure, and then it gave me this.
Yes, and mine's doing that too. I don't know why. So keep going down. That should be in there. Go down to where it just says happens to be right there. Oh.
Yeah, it did that for me also. And then I don't know, I messed it up a little. There
So
was
you
a-
configure, and then the data prism suggestions,
Region.
Okay.
and then scroll down. And I mean, take a look at all these things. But yeah, here.
Yeah, no, I messed with it because it wasn't looking right.
So keep scrolling down. There's the box plot. That's what I'm looking at. So if you click up to the expand button, there's a little arrow that. Yep, hit that. And then there it is.
So I'm not seeing these on my end.
You guys see this one?
Region. Split by.
Oh, see, I haven't even gotten to that yet. I just did. So you're sort of manually doing this right now. So this is probably more similar to like Tableau, right? Is that? Yeah. I'm not here. I'll try and get to that point too. So yeah, let's try and explore this stuff. Summary charts, box plot. So here, box plot is what we're doing. Hex bin, where's the scatter? Heat map, dimension, word cloud, big number, histogram, ridge lines. All right. So trust is here. Happiness score is another one we can do. You can see that North America and New Zealand are very happy. Other places, maybe not so much. And we're splitting by region. So you said you couldn't find region on yours? I'm sorry, I'm going to try and get there.
Mine say like bar type and then like X axis
Oh, did you go to?
Y-axis.
Yeah.
I don't have some of those charts that you have.
Yeah, let's try. Yeah, we are like basic charts. Mine were different. Basic versus summary. Okay,
Oh, okay.
where that drop down will give us sort of what we're looking for there. So if we go to basic charts, again, this we're sort of getting into sort of Tableau realms here. Scatter plot. The x-axis we're going to have at the bottom, life expectancy. And then this is coded for the region. So let's see, can I have everybody try to get to this point too? We're going to go to the top where you can pick your chart type. We're going to go to basic charts. We're going to click on the third one, that's scatter plot. And it should give you on the x-axis happiness score, and then health, life expectancy on the y-axis. And then the size, I believe, is GDP, so the economy. And then the color is going to be the region. So this is a crazy visualization. There is a lot going on, right? We're able to understand GDP of a particular area by the size of the dot. We are able to recognize where they are in the world. And we sort of see a linear relationship, right? As happiness goes up, life expectancy goes up. And you can kind of look to see sub-Saharan Africa. So this is illuminating stuff, right? I mean, it's also, that's, I guess, the moral, I guess the ongoing trend for some of this data is that it's kind of depressing a little bit.
Okay, so you can click on a specific region and then make a chart off of that. I did it on accident, clicking around.
Yeah.
And mine did not look like it. So then you can go to this part, change yours, and it'll bring everything back.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
So this is, I know this is a lot, but this is sort of illustrating, similarly to Tableau, these low code ways to do visual exploratory data analysis. Like just this in and of itself is a very compelling visualization. There is a lot to learn from this. I think, like you said, I think you can just click on the one, deselect. Yeah, so if I want to, can you double click it? No, I think that's only Tableau.
so I'll click on the actual guide.
Right. See more options. Where is it? Oh. Why won't mine do it?
But it wasn't all on the scatter plot, it was all of those on the whisker point.
Gotcha. So what else can we look at here? I'm going to look at freedom and trust of the government. Woo! Interesting. Denmark and Qatar, Singapore. High trust in the government, high freedom. Where's America? America's got to be like freedom, low trust. I bet it is. Let's see. North America's red. But does this start to sort of like open up your mind a little bit in terms of like, we just did all this data cleaning so we can get to this point, so we can start exploring the data visually. We can start making compelling visualizations. Like Rochelle was just saying, you can, I don't know why mine won't create annotation.
So when I clicked the scatter plot, I was like, wow, I only have, two circles. So I was trying to figure it out. And then I clicked on this slide.
Well, cool. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of what this time is for, is to explore this stuff. And so the cool thing about this is by doing this sort of prism suggestion, we have a lot of stuff already done for us. And we can sort of say, like, this isn't exactly what I want, but this is close to something that I think could be interesting. So you actually have the country maps. So I'm going to open up that one. And this is still a little buggy, but yeah, this gets really cool. So now we have the economy. Let's look at happiness rank. Combination, we can't do that. World labor base, zoom. So I think we can, yeah. Family. I think this is family size. Generosity. The lighter they get, the more generous they are. They're so generous in Myanmar. I didn't even know. But there's also context to this data, right? Like, when was this survey like made? Was it made like 10 years ago? Like, this could very easily be a lot different now. Okay. So we are at 8. We're going to take another small break, and then we're going to get into some of the other stuff that's on this site, and sort of the next steps. I'm going to put out some assignments. It's mostly going to be questions, but I'd also like you guys to, outside of this, go through some of these notebooks, and if you find something that's interesting and you're curious about it, let's talk about it. So yeah, feel free to get up, stretch legs, get drinks. We'll be back in 10 minutes, and we'll kind of finish going through this stuff and set us up for Wednesday. And yeah, then we will be done for the night. I'm gonna put on my banner again. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I'm fired. Don't tell Nate. Just kidding. He'll see this. So yeah, in summary, we just went over distributions and the sort of different ways to show that stuff. Distributions are key to sort of understanding insight about your data. Oh, whoa, somebody just ran something. I don't know who that was. So yeah, now we're getting into summary charts. This sort of gets into, summary charts can be both reporting and analytics. To start out here initially, we're kind of just reporting. I forget what the ladder score is. Perceptions of corruption. So this is sort of just giving us number snapshots of what's going on, the ladder score average explained by perceptions of corruption. So we can kind of see where that's higher, North America, New Zealand. Oh boy. And then people love word clouds. Yep. Yeah, and this is really good for text data when you're trying to do some sort of sentiment analysis. Let's say that you've got survey data. Like at Methodist, I had to work on that quite a bit, where they were trying to understand the reviews they were getting. But there is a nuance to that too, because if you have a good stay at a hospital, you're probably just like, that's just how it should always be. If you have a bad stay, you're going to be like, I'm going to tell somebody. So like a lot of the times the only reviews are bad reviews. So there's always nuance to data like that. So this is cool. This is similar to a heat map. You can sort of see the number of participants. Even better. So there's 1 there, there's 10. So sort of as it goes up. Yeah, for sure. These are definitely getting a little more nuanced. Violin plot, this is very similar to what we saw. This one's looking at the happiness data. And box and whistle, this was like probably the first one we looked at. Yeah, so some of this is stuff we've already gone through. So yeah, let's head back to I thought that was a different one. So funnels and flows, this sort of starts to talk about some of the ones that I was showing where you have those chord plots, and you can kind of see the lineage of how things work. Yeah, here's our, what is this data again? Let me just take a look at it. Oh, this is funnel steps. I think this is clickstream data. Yeah, so this is basically data that from a website. Specifically, I think this one's pretty small. They have people from Colombia, Colorado, and California. And so sort of understanding what this stuff looks like, a lot of people are logging in, home, checkout, a few returns, some help. And so here we're coding this data to sort of understand the route that a particular user goes down. Most people log in, everyone logs in. A lot of people go to home, some people go to cart. If they're in the cart, it looks like everybody checked out. They might go back to shop, and then there are some errors. I don't know why some of these aren't loading. Yeah, this is a big one. Yeah, and so this gets fun. Here you sort of follow users, and so the bigger they are, you know that there's more. There's 10 people here that went down this, then they went home for one reason they had to log in again. Somebody's having an error, but what this is starting to create is like user stories. So if you're working for, let's say, somebody with this type of data and they want to understand, they want to validate user experience design choices, where the shop button is or where the checkout button is, we can visualize this data to see which way the customer goes. And that can validate design choices. So it's really, this is the power of proper visualization. And again, the stuff that Notable can do this quickly is like, coding this out would probably take me like 30 to 45 minutes. And then I wouldn't be happy with the font. And so I'd have to try and find a different font. And then I wouldn't like the colors. And then this allows me to pretty much do everything that I want to do very, very, very quickly. In this case, this notebook is static because so many people are using it. It's not live, so we can't do too much to this. But it's still super, super powerful stuff. And so this gets into some semantics on the difference between flows and paths, which we don't necessarily need to get into that. That's more in a customer experience setting. So if it's something that you're passionate about, definitely look into. We're going to keep on rolling though. Yeah, so this is one of my favorites. These diagrams I think are totally cool. First date. Wow, so this is hilarious. So on a first date, most of them are unsuccessful. Looks like just about all of them. But some of them get to a second date, and most of them have an unsuccessful second date. Somebody 4-month relationship. Nate Watson just sent me a message. Is he giving me? Oh, is my sound still off?
No, we got you.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that, guys. And where did my mouse go? There we go. This is crazy. Flame graphs? I'm sorry, I've never even heard of this. Yeah, so we are obviously getting into more and more nuanced of visualizations, depending upon what part of the business world you're working in. This might make sense. I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't even know what this is representing. There's a homework assignment for somebody if they wanted is explain this visualization and why. I'm sure I could probably read this and I'll get something out of it. It looks like it's all code, like Bootstrap. Interesting. Cool. And here we have another Sankey. I love these Sankey diagrams. I think they're so cool, especially illustrating. I mean, the first date stuff was hilarious, but when you think of it from a customer standpoint, understanding the journey that your customer goes through, depending upon where you're at, or even like a patient in a hospital setting, understanding if they're in critical care and then they go into step down and watching that and being able to sort of like aggregate at that level and show it at this, I just think it's so cool. And again, these visualizations take a long time to code if you're doing them manually. Are you looking at the flame graph?
Yeah, it's looking at like how many people are access that, and then how many people like drop off. Like total off this stuff, total off this stuff.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's keep trucking down this. So when you're ready, we'll go back and hit Data Prism. Again, this is the thing that they have very recently rolled out. And it is basically the road to self-serve BI. So this is exactly what it used to be like, trying to find some sort of a program to do low code business intelligence and stuff like this. It was like Tableau or bust. Tableau is obviously like one of the big, very huge. A lot of people use it, but the user experience to me is a little bit clunky. Yeah, so this is exactly, yeah. So we won't go through this too much. This is one of the first things we looked at, but this is to be able to just put a data set into this and say, just give me something is so insanely powerful. It jumpstarts your creativity and your inspiration as far as what you're trying to tell, especially when you have when you have all of your data cleaned and you've done your EDA on it and you're very familiar with it. Being able to put it in here and do this is just a huge game changer. We looked at that. I think scatter plots we looked at. We're kind of coming to an end here. We will look at time series. I don't think we've done too much time series in this. Did you guys do any of that in Tableau where you were looking at trends over time or anything like that? You did some stuff? Yes.
Yeah, we did that.
Cool.
We did a series of graphs where I did shipping, not the post office. And we looked at like how many people do the same day versus priority versus so many days.
Right.
And then based on the data collected in 2014, so they expect 2015 or 2016.
Right. Cool. Yeah. So this is going to be more of that basically. So this is monthly climate.
I figured out what that graph was too.
There's one in here that I really, yeah, cool. Yeah, so we'll start up here. So these two graphs are showing the same data but differently. So this says cumulative precipitation. When we say cumulative, that means we're just adding the next one onto it. So for instance, if we look at the simple view, we see that there was a lot of precipitation on December 1st, and then there was none, and then we got some more on April 1st. So then similarly here, we can see we had a big jump on December 1st, and then we didn't have anything in a while. And then remember, we had the big jump up on April 1st, which we see that here, and then nothing, and then a little bit. So there's different ways, depending upon what you're trying to show. Obviously, this should be reminiscent of some of the stuff Charlie talked about as far as like, what's your audience? What are you trying to show? Does it make sense to show things cumulatively? Does it not? Yeah, and so this is just more of the same. Yep, and so here's, again, that same data cumulatively. Yeah, and this is often used in like burn down charts for project management to sort of show everything that you've completed, the tickets you've completed and whatnot. So this is definitely useful. Here we have temperature range. So we can see the range of temperature when it's raining. We see kind of goes down, and then the temperature goes up, and then it goes down. I don't know. I would connect these. That's interesting. Yeah, and so then here's the sort of same thing, and you can see the average temperature when it's raining, when it's not. So this is a bad thing, in my opinion. So what's going on here is that we are looking at two different things, and they're trying to sort of, yes, they happened at the same time. So this is temperature and I believe barometric pressure. And those things typically are related, but we have a y-axis over here that is giving us the pressure, and then we have another y-axis here that's showing the temperature. Dual axes like this can be really misleading. Did Charlie talk about that at all in terms of like showing correlation where none exist? There's a really famous website. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Fake correlation. Yeah, here we go. Number of people who drowned by falling into pools correlates with films Nicolas Cage appeared in. See how similar they are? So films versus the amount of drowning. So this just shows that you can, if you mess with your axes enough, you can show correlation between anything. So I would not recommend.
And he's making a lot of movies now, so don't get in the pool.
Do not get into a pool. That's right. Divorce rates, per capita consumption of margin.
That's funny. Even better.
Yep. Age of Miss America, murders by steam, hot vapors, and other objects. Miss America, watch out. There's a really bad one of Leonardo DiCaprio. It's like the age of Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriend gets to like 25, and his age keeps going up, and then he gets a new girlfriend who's 25, and it's like, yeah. So anywho, that is to say, watch out for dual y-axes. It sort of make barometric pressure and temperature are things that are occurring at the same time outside, so they very well could be correlated. So I'm not terribly mad at this, but just watch out. I'm going to split. But yeah, time series charts can really show some important stuff. You guys did it in Tableau, you understand. And we're just about through with this. And then I'm going to show a few more parts of this, and then I'm going to throw some assignments out, and I will make sure to put those in the deep note, and I'll put them in Slack too. They're not going to, again, they're going to be more exploring for you guys to do, finding things you have questions about, and bringing that up. Okay, I'm going to do, is there anything in image folder? No, okay. So scatter plot. So this gets into, remember how I said we saw a linear relationship between happiness and life expectancy. In this case, we're looking at GDP per capita and happiness score. And this is plotting that linear relationship. So this is using ordinary least squares method to calculate a slope, basically, like y equals ms plus b, mx plus b type of slope. But mathematically, you can then use that to predict things. So this is very simplistic model building. If we have a formula for this line and we know the capita per GDP, we can get a decent estimate of this latter score, which I believe is the happiness score. So that when we talk about linear relationships, that's what we're talking about. And let me see how they did that. Filter. I didn't think that they had that yet, but they totally do. That's awesome. Trend line, yeah. Gotcha. So this is one, have you guys ever seen a correlation plot like this before? So this is sort of exactly what I was talking about up there as far as like getting that slope. If these numbers here are essentially what percentage of this data follows this line. The more that this approaches one, the more of a relationship there is there. So with this case, we're looking at ladder score, and I can't read what this one says, logged GDP per capita. So you're kind of like finding this one and then seeing this one. So we see that there is a pretty big relationship there. And then the negative means that it's not doing a very good job. So if we look at some of these, this is not doing a very good job. Basically, the line is not doing a very good job of describing what's happening within the data. So this is a very, very, very powerful visualization tool to understand what predictors or what sort of columns within your data, how they relate to one another. Again, if we looked at barometric pressure to temperature, like we saw earlier, we would probably see a correlation there. But I don't know if anybody's ever heard the term correlation does not always imply causation. And we saw that with the number of Nicolas Cage films versus people drowning in pools. There is correlation, yes. Did Nicolas Cage really cause those drownings? No, he did not. That we know of. And then confusion matrix, this is basically that same thing, but we're not seeing the distribution here. We're just seeing the full thing. And the interesting thing with this is, if we look here, we have perception of corruption and social support at 20. We also see this here because these are the same thing. It's sort of mirrored. So do you see how, like, if we just flip this on itself, it's the same thing? That's why the other plot doesn't have those there. So like this one right here has the correlation of 0.79. So we can see it visually and then we can get the number here. I don't expect you, like, this is pretty, I guess, this is looking at sort of statistics and stuff like that. So if this is not clicking right away, that's totally cool. This is more geared towards EDA for something that we might put into some sort of a machine learning model or something. That's why we're very interested in these correlation scores, because if they're very good, we know that we can potentially build a model that will give us accurate predictions. Yep, and here again, I don't recommend it. Ladder score, social support. There's a better way to graph this, in my opinion, but some people like to see this. That's when I worked at Methodist, they loved dual axis wide charts, and I tried to. It was a hill I was going to die on, and it ended up not being worth it. So if you got to do it, you got to do it. And then, yep, these are super, super helpful too. This makes a little more sense to me. I guess this is only showing one, but still, I think that's powerful. This one, not so much. So let's talk about what's wrong with this. If I were doing this, I would cut this off at like 50, because we don't need to know everything that's going on down to 0. I would also maybe flip this so I could read the names of these. This is probably all stuff I could do. Let's see if so let's go. Y-axis should be regional indicator. Is not letting me scroll down. Okay, whatever. Still slightly glitchy. But does that make sense to you guys? Like, if I showed this to my boss and was like, see, look, it's going up as we get closer to Western Europe, he'd be like, this isn't terribly compelling. I can't read what half of these say. I have to like tilt my head to look at it. So it's important to think about things like that. Like make your stuff readable. Make sure that things don't get cut off. Don't waste space like this. Like this is not a terribly efficient visualization. Similarly here, I like this one a little bit better because you can kind of read that a little bit better, but yeah. And then radar plots. Did you guys do any of this in Tableau? Yeah, these are, I don't know. I don't think that they're very good, but some people love them. I don't know. Yeah, it's not for me. Ladder scoring dystopia. Yeah, this is decent. Cool. All right. So now let's get into next steps. There are more. So assignment for next week is to just go through one of these. There should be, are these the only ones? Looks like there are a few other published ones. Go through some of these. Here's a Python list tutorial. Oh yeah, sure, we can do that. Oh, this is huge. Yep, I go in the corner, notable core. This stuff on here is similar to the stuff we just went through, community notebooks. There's a fair amount of, this is kind of getting into the nitty-gritty Python stuff that we've talked about a little bit. You can go through that if you want. I think there's some better visualization ones. Pokemon Picker. Let's check it out. I have no idea what it does. Run. That's the other thing. If you do get into these notebooks and they're not static ones, you will have to hit run. It's not doing anything. And you go through at least one of these and just run the whole thing and take a look at it. And I just kind of want 3 either observations or questions about the things that you saw. Feel free to screen cap it if you want to. I'll probably just have you guys put those in Slack. You can just DM me is probably the easiest way. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff in the next class. Things you like, things you don't like, things that made sense, things that don't make sense. It doesn't necessarily have to be all from Notable. If you have other Python questions or want to get into, I don't know, model building or something like that, throw that in there. I kind of want to tailor the next class to talk about that stuff. I have some stuff that I'm obviously going to go over, but I'd like to make sure that you're getting what you want out of this. And so you now have access to this. You have access to Anaconda. We've gone through the Deep Note. There's links to a bunch of other notebooks. Just go through those and just what inspires you. What other questions do you have? Yeah, does that make sense? Cool. Gonna see if there's any other. Cool. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff in here for sure. So there's integration with SQL is one of the ones that's in here that is fun. Postgres demo. Yeah, this stuff is just, there's just a massive amount of fun stuff in here. Yeah. Cool. So we're just a couple minutes shy, but I'm obviously going to stick around for the next 40 minutes or so. So feel free if you guys have questions, if you want to go through this stuff. And then feel free to even like make your own notebook. Like you can go to create notebook name, notebook, project, my first project, create. And there we go. Import pandas as PD.
So we go through these 3 questions prior to the class.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
I'd like to get a decent idea. And I'll throw some reminders in Slack. And if you really don't have any, like, let's talk about why you don't have any. Like, for real, like, I wanted to make sure that, like, if this is all completely Greek and it's just like not jiving, let's try and figure out a way to make it jive. What's that? Good. That's what I want. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So maybe in my mind, I was thinking like pandas was like specifically just like anaconda. That's not the case.
No, but that's a super good observation. Like it would make, I can see exactly why you would think that. Anaconda is just a framework to get to write Python.
So like Python.
Yes.
Okay, so anytime that you're writing Python, you will let alias import pandas as PD.
Yep. If you want to use pandas,
If I want to use the pandas database.
if you want to use the functions and all the stuff, yeah,
Or excuse me.
that's right.
One more time, if I want to use the functions of pandas.
Yes.
So in Python, like the way you write it in different functions have like different names. Is that what you're?
Yep. So yeah, NumPy was the first one that we talked about.
Oh, okay.
Pandas expands on that and gives us the data frame architecture, and gives us all the cool stuff when we throw a data frame, make a pandas data frame with, for instance, the Titanic data. It gives us all that extra data too, the describe, the mean of particular columns, the absolute value. Like it gives us all the tools. So it's like we have this cool data frame, and then you look under the hood, and there's all this other stuff in there. It's like, oh man. And so that's pandas does that to data.
Okay, so pandas and Python is a particular way to choose writing.
Yes, you're using pandas to manipulate data.
Okay.
Yep. Trying to think of another.
So Python is a language, but like you said, pandas is like.
Yeah. So Python is, I'll do a loop. So x equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For I in length x. Oh, it's syntax mixed up. Oh man, I'm failing miserably.
We do a track thing, like we did in